Good afternoon. Welcome to our June dealer safety webinar. Today, I want to talk about manual handling, heavy loads. So we've done manual handling a few times in these webinars, and with some recent dealer visits, we've probably just discovered that one of the key risks within dealerships is manual handling, but specifically heavy loads, because some heavy loads that you come across in dealerships, very commonly movement of tires. This would happen in parts warehouse and obviously servicing. Tow bars, again, in parts warehouse and service. Full bars, chemical drums, mostly in service, and certain parts, heavy parts such as a gearbox going in and out of an engine or something. So there are certain parts of a vehicle that you might have to remove for certain servicing or reasons, and they might be quite substantial in weight. So those are some of the common ones. They are not the only ones. There are others, but these have come up in discussions at a few dealerships as being quite regular heavy loads that are moved. So I wanted to look at these. We're not going to look at how you risk assess these because they're heavy. We already know they're a risk. So now what I want to talk about is, well, how do we safely lift these? Obviously, I'm going to tell you, if you've got a lifting aid, use that. But that's not always practical, not always an option, and not always done. So how can we do it safely if we don't have a lifting aid or something to do the lift for us? A reminder of why I'm focusing so much on manual handling in our webinars is because 50% of injuries that happen in a dealership that get to workers' compensation, so they're a significant enough injury, are related to manual handling. And a lot of those will involve either repetitive or heavy loads. So the process, I guess, talking about manual handling, the first thing we need to do in any manual handling, heavy lift or not, is to make sure that we perform the lift correctly. So the first step is always we need to assess the lift. What are we lifting? Where are we lifting it from? Where do we have to get it to? Can you get a good grasp on the load? So what is the load itself? Is it something that has handles? Does it not have handles? Is it in a box? Is it big? Some things are really just big and awkward to hold. Is it inside an engine? That's going to be awkward to access to then perform the lift. Are there any obstacles between where you're lifting it from and where you're lifting it to? Is it possible to use an aid? That's always going to be the first question that you need to ask if it's a heavy item. The lifting aid might be used to perform the lift, or you might just be lifting it onto a trolley so that you're not lifting it a farther distance. So we're going, let's use a trolley. So we lift it only onto a trolley, and then the weight is now on the trolley. So now we're just pushing it somewhere. So that's important to focus on. The next step after assessing the load or assessing what we have to move, so call it the load, is to prepare for that lift. And the key thing I'm going to point out here is this talks about stretching, preparing yourself, not just preparing the load or the area. So obviously you would do those things too. If there is an obstacle, clearly you're going to move that out of the way. If you've assessed the load and gone, it's a little bit slippery, well, we might wipe it clean. But preparing yourself, and I think people are very nervous about the idea that maybe we should do some stretching and prepare our body, warm our body up before we perform a heavy lift. If you are performing lots of small lifts, you should also do this, but definitely before you're doing any big lift, you should be making sure that your body is prepared for that big lift and stretching the parts of your body relevant to performing a lift. So we're going to talk about, you're going to want to do your core. You want to make sure that your back, your lower back, your upper back, and your legs, hips, all of that is stretched out. It's warmed up, and it's just going to reduce the chances of injury. The next step is kind of the actual performing the lift close to the body. So getting your body as close as you can to the load. This means feet apart, about shoulder width, if you can. If you can straddle the load so that when you squat down, you can then reach it whilst kind of want to be able to reach something whilst your back is straight. So your back goes up and down, but your arms stay comfortable. You want to squat wherever possible. If you can't get your knees or your hips or your body down that far, bend one knee. So one leg stays like in its position, and then the other one, it's like, well, this one, we go onto one knee here. And then as you stand, you rise your body, you use your leg to move this one up and get it stable, and then continue to raise your body up. So just think about that. Close to the body is step 3. The next point, up and down only, especially once we have a heavy load. We want to try and have only vertical movement, but we also want to go, can we reduce that vertical movement as much as possible? So up and down. If you can pick something up at your waist height and then just put it down slightly, but not have to go all the way to the ground. Or can what you need to lift, can we make sure that it's being put into a spot to begin with where it's not all the way on the ground, so that you can lower yourself down so that it's at the height you want to hold it and lift it, and then you lift it up? Or are you grabbing it at a suitable height and then lifting it down, but again trying to avoid all the way to the ground, and then definitely avoiding anything where you might be tempted to twist. So twisting is no good. If you do have to do any movement, you need to make sure you move your feet. Move your feet. And you might need to shuffle your feet to move, because if you got something heavy, your movement's going to be restricted. So some shuffling is okay. So yeah, avoid horizontal movements, sideways, twisting. Oh, I'm going to carry it for 5 steps, whatever. Just it would be better if you lifted something up or down, put it on a trolley, and then any sideways or horizontal movement is happening on a trolley. Then the last step, now this is probably the one, other than the preparing and the stretching, this one's probably the most forgotten and left out step. Reset. This is again stretching, taking a break from lifting, and I'm going to show you this in a bit more detail as we go through. I just want to highlight some key things. Posture is not the biggest risk we're talking about today, because we're talking about heavy lifting. So the biggest risk is the weight of the load we're carrying and the fact that we're manually lifting it instead of using an aid. So it's the weight itself that's the risk. But if we have that heavy load and we add an awkward posture to it, we've increased our risk of an injury. So I've already said heavy load, we automatically have a risk of injury. Heavy load plus poor posture equals increased risk of an injury. So you're going to go from like a likely injury to a highly likely injury. And that's why I said we're going to avoid twisting and horizontal level movements, because if you're moving horizontally, you are more tempted to twist. And so we want to avoid that. So here's just, this is the Green Man. This comes from Toyota. This is a Toyota tool. And he's just a really good visual representation of how far is the body's natural and comfortable movement for a healthy fit individual. So where should your arms be when you're holding something? So when you think, when you think about a heavy load, think about how you're grasping the item. You can see the arm on the right hand side of the screen. It kind of wants to be in this sort of posture. And even the hand, you can see the grip on the hand that they're showing is like a comfortable, relaxed grip. You don't want your fingers apart. You don't want them scrunched together. You don't want to be gripping something like that. Check your hand out, relaxed. That's the grip you're looking for. But the arm itself kind of wants to be anywhere from like here to like there. And it's okay to go a little bit further, but you want to avoid that as far as possible. Same in the other direction. There's this safe, our body has like, it likes to go in one direction more. See, we can bend our arm up here really well. It goes this way a lot less. So you are allowed less from here down, you're allowed less movement. Up, you can have a lot more safe movement. Sideways, you're going sideways, our arms don't want to go up, but they're comfortable to go down pretty far. And then next is how far you want to bend your body forward. You'll notice it's not showing the body bending backwards at all. So the allowable movement of our back backwards, I think, is like 10 or 15 degrees. It's not very far, so avoid. So if you're lifting a load, what this says when we're lifting something heavy, so when you lift something heavy, try not to lean backwards with it, which is a temptation. We are, and even forward, you're permitted less than 30 degrees movement forward, which isn't very far at all. So that's worth considering. And again, moving to the side and side. And so this is about centering the load. The reason we got to put our legs on either side of the load is so that our body is centered. If you are one-sided, you're gonna bend. If your legs are uneven, you're gonna find yourself bending one way or the other. So we're trying to overcompensate. If the load is not even as well, so this is when we assess the load, consider, is one side of the load heavier than the other? Is it gonna weight in a particular direction or move, or is it likely to move on you? That's gonna increase the chances of you bending. I already spoke a little bit about comfortable hand and grip. That's kind of what this is about. Shake your hands out. How do they feel comfortable? That's the position they want to be in. You don't want to be bending your wrists. Avoid bending your wrists. Avoid your fingers going open wide. Also, actually avoid your fingers being too close together. Yeah, I don't want to focus too much on that, but I did want to raise it. It's important to note that if we are adding poor postures or awkward movements to a heavy lift, we've increased our risk of injury, and we want to avoid that. So some key points about what are we going to define as a heavy lift. Anything over 15 kilograms for most people would be a heavy lift. 20 kilograms is the maximum that I think any one person should be lifting on their own. Anything over 20 kilograms is a heavy lift, and most people should not be attempting anything over 25 kilograms. But that said, I know that a tire itself is more than that. So the items I mentioned would be easily over that. Some of them up to about 40 kilos, some of them over that. Some of them could get over that. Probably most of them could be around the 40 kilo mark commonly. And there is some evidence out there that suggests it is safe as a once-off to perform a lift up to 55 kilograms for some people. So this is like fit, healthy, stretched out, warmed up, correct posture. All of that has to be in place for that sort of a weight limit to be in place. In Australia, we have no law that says how much you can lift, and even the guidance material on what is a heavy load isn't really there for us to use. So we've really got to think about what is a safe lift. So I'm going to say advice is that a single person shouldn't be lifting over 25 kilos, but I know it's happening. And that's what we're talking about today is how we can improve that. When we are lifting over 25 kilograms, what do we really, really have to focus on and do correctly? When we're talking about a heavy load, so something over 20, 25 kilos, this can cause injury in one go. You don't have to have a repetition or the awkward move or posture. The lift itself being heavy could cause an injury. I really want us to think about our technique, and I've shown that already to you, but I'm going to give you a few extra pointers soon. And movement should be as small as possible. So when we're lifting something heavy, I really want to go like, can we lift it from here to here instead of lifting it from here to here? Can we lift it from the ground onto a trolley instead of having to lift it from the ground and carry it to the vehicle? So making the movement as small as possible. Also, slow movements. Slow, steady movements, no big jerking actions, nothing fast. Slow allows your muscles to adjust and to kind of catch up with what's happening. Okay, so there's two things I want to really look at today. So I've mentioned heavy lifts. I've told you the technique for how you should lift safely. Now, there's a couple of key activities that occur in dealerships that have a very high risk. One of them is a high risk because of this one, two-person or multi-person lift, is always a high risk activity to do. The other one I will talk about is lifting tires because it's the most frequent heavy lift that is done within dealerships. Two-person and multi-person lift. When an item is greater than 20 kilograms and for some reason it is not reasonably practicable to use a lifting aid, you can use more than one person. But we need to consider that for two people to say, even if you said it's safe for one person to lift 20 kilos, it's not safe for two people to lift 40 kilos. It doesn't double. It's something around the region of 16 kilos per person. So not even up to, so it might be easier to just go, let's say 15 kilos per person. So really two people, 30 kilos is like the limit. You could go, but again, the research indicates we could, with care, conditions, the right people, we might be able to take up to 60, but I really wouldn't recommend that. I would kind of say two-person lift limit. Let's try to keep it to 40 kilos, two-person, and preferably 40 kilos should be done with a three-person lift. Now, we also need to consider that these conditions on when this lift is safe to perform with multiple people, every person needs to be able to hold that item and grasp it safely. And hold it, grasp it safely. I'll show you performing a lift in a second. But I would definitely say anything over 60 kilos should be done by an aid only, because by the time you're going to have too many people involved in that lift, and you're not going to be easily able to coordinate it. So I'm going to consider the load, how heavy it is. Can everyone actually grasp that item? And does everyone know how to perform a two-person lift? We often get someone to help us lift something, but have we all been actually trained in doing it? Here's how to do it. First of all, step one, you need to appoint a lead. Who is coordinating, instructing that lift? Who says 3, 2, 1, lift? Who is the person designated that is saying, okay, step left, step right, go down? Who's the one saying that? And everyone agrees who it is. Everyone follows that person's movements and instructions. If that doesn't mean that during the lift, if you're having a problem, you can't say stop. But the appointed lead is the person that then goes, okay, everyone, lower, so that everyone can do it at the same time. By having an appointed person, we know what we're all doing at the same time. Number 2, assess. So I said we got to assess the load, same as we did with a normal lift. Another aspect, so on top of those things that we've already talked about assessing, are you evenly heighted? Are the people performing the lift level, so that when you're going, I want to lift it at this height on me, that height on me is the same height on you and not different heights. So where possible, find 2 people or 3 people that are as evenly heighted as possible to perform the lift together. Prepare. All people performing the lift need to prepare themselves. They need to stretch. Would gloves improve your grip on the item? Do you need to wipe down the item to make sure there's no oil, grease, water, dust, anything that might make your grip slip? Is there anything you can do to improve your grip on the item? Any strap or attachment that you could easily link onto the item to allow you to have a better grip and a lift? Another extra step. So I said the first point is new, appoint a lead. This 4th point is also new. And that is rehearse the lift. So this means all prepare yourselves around it. Where are you going to stand? Where are you positioning your feet? Where are your hands going to go? You're not actually lifting yet, but check that you can do that. And then you go 3, 2, 1, lift, and you don't actually lift yet, but you all rise together. Make sure you're moving all together. So the reason for rehearsing is to make sure that you know, are we going on 3 or after 3? You know that question. Are we lifting on lift, or are we lifting on 3? Are we lifting on 1? You know, that's why we rehearse, to make sure that we're all moving together. Then each person, watch your posture. You can see those images there of making sure, you know, that top image, the person squatting down correctly. If you can't squat down, make sure you bend a knee. And then the bottom one is about that rehearsing the lift, doing it, moving together. It's very, 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 very important with multiple people that we are slow, that we are steady. Keeping in mind your posture, getting things close to your body, bending your legs, squatting, bum out, and lifting with your legs. So from the ground movement, got rid of my chair. From the ground movement up, it's all in the legs. Notice how my torso doesn't move at all. That's as far as I can squat down. If you need to, you bend a leg. So the knee is kind of going to go where your foot should go. So you're going, how do I do the knee? Well, you go, this is where I want my feet to be, but if I have to bend a knee, then this knee is going to go where this foot should be. So it'll be back a little, get down, get your load close to the body. Then we're going to move up. And once you're up, adjust. Because you're adjusting only that leg, not this one. You're not twisting or anything else. You're not bending. This all stays straight. All the movements happening in the legs. And we're only moving up and down. We're not moving side to side. We're not moving forward or back, up and down only. Now, I've also added to this, consider, we only want to lift up and down. So can we consider having a side person, an additional person that can then put a trolley underneath what we're moving, so that if we have to move this somewhere else, we then move it on the trolley. Then if we have to perform a second lift, we'll do that. So we lift it up, slide a trolley under it, put it on the trolley, move it where we want it to go, prepare our lift again, all lift together, get it in place. You might also need, that additional person might have to follow you to place to then like ratchet it into place or whatever is needed. Then remember at the end, reset. I'm going to look at reset again because reset is more important than people give it credit for. I wanted to give you now an actual example of a task. This happens at every dealership. This is happening multiple times a day for many staff members, and it is a high-risk task. Obviously, I'm going to tell you wherever possible, top image, use a lifting aid, tire lifters. But for whatever reason, they seem to not be your preferred option for workers. So you need to consider the weight of the tire you're lifting. Different vehicles are going to have a different sized weighted tire. Can you yourself lift that tire? And it might be that you believe yourself capable of doing some of them, but then maybe the bigger four-wheel drive vehicles, or just the larger vehicles, utility vehicles, you might choose to use a lifting aid for at least those ones. And I'm going to strongly recommend that the larger tires, that everyone considers an aid where possible. Now, the main lift that's performed of a tire is honestly just getting it on and off a vehicle. A couple of things to consider. Now, none of those photos I'm showing there are particularly perfect. The one at the bottom, you'll notice the vehicle height is suitable for her to grab that tire with her arms comfortable. Whereas on this image in the middle, he's having to lift it up higher. So, a couple of things to consider when taking a tire off the vehicle. Step one is to move the hoist to the right height. Make sure you can grab the wheel and not the hub. And this is about our grip and where the weight's being distributed. If we're grabbing the hub, it's now not close to our body, and we're now putting the weight into our arms. We need to grab the sides of the wheel or the base of the wheel based on the size of the tire, based on your arm reach, what's comfortable for you. I'm not going to tell you specifics because you need to do what's comfortable for you. The moment something is uncomfortable, there's a risk in manual handling. We're going to go up and down only. I've seen it happen where you take the tire off, you go over there, you put it down, you lay it down. There's a lot of twisting and a lot of unnecessary movements. And even the dropping is often happening like this instead of like this. So again, going close, you can shuffle your feet backwards. Shuffle your feet backwards, get it off the vehicle. Lower it down, place it down, roll it where you want it. And then when you need to pick it up again, obviously flip it up, roll it to the car, squat down, kneel down, whichever you choose. Get your grip on the tire, trying as much as possible to get the grip how you're going to want it when you reach, when you're up at the tire and getting it onto the car, when you're up at the vehicle and getting it onto the car. Yeah, anything else? Anything else? Weight, height, yeah, so posture. Very easy to kind of want to lean backwards when you're holding the tire because the size of the tire, you're like, it's all in my face. So I'm going to lean back. It's a natural instinct to go, it's in my face. I'm going to move away from it. That's instantly going to like have you leaning backwards whilst you're holding something heavy. Not good for your back. So something to think about, something to focus on, something to remember whilst you're lifting. Now, that's about all we have time for, but I did want to talk about resetting. Resetting can be stretches. Resetting can be a massage. Resetting, I love these. I love these things. A tennis ball. Tennis balls are great. You can do it lying down, or you can do it against a chair. You can do it against a wall. What you do is you get the ball. Now, most people use a tennis ball. If a tennis ball is too soft for you, you can get like harder, sometimes like dog balls, like what you throw for your dog, are great. And you're going to get it. You need to focus on your lower back, upper back, hips, glutes, and now quads. Those are the key areas to focus on for your stretches. For any sort of this, with the tennis ball, it's either called like point release, it might be called deep tissue massage, lots of different names. I'm going to recommend you find some exercises that are best for you. But with the balls, you find the bottom of your ribs. You're going to do your low back, and you start bottom of your ribs, go across to your spine. Take my jacket off. Bottom of your ribs, find your spine, and then go back about an inch from your spine. Put the ball in there. If you're lying down, or maybe you're against a wall, you just move your leg up and down. Sometimes with any bent, sometimes with a thing, and then sideways a little as well. Just trying to get any movement you can possibly get. If you feel pressure in that point, keep doing it until the pressure is released. To work your lower back, move it down a little bit, repeat. Move it down a little bit, repeat. Move it down right till, right to your butt, repeat. That'll do your lower back. You do it both sides. Then your upper back, you start at the same point, but then go up all the way up to your shoulder. But when you're doing your upper back, instead of moving your legs, you move your arm around. So you have the ball between, you're leaning up against a wall with the ball there. Bring your arm across your body, up, circle it, and the slow movements with your arms and your legs. To do your glutes, get a solid chair, not a thing chair. And again, just find that point, kind of like you sort of stop there. So now move just below your hip bone and you work your way down. Work your way down. Doing the same thing, just when you're sitting, just lifting your leg, swinging your leg, moving it sideways, any movement. And if you feel discomfort, sometimes it can be painful. Pain indicates that's a point in your body that is strained and the muscles are tight. That's where you're likely risking an injury. So any point that you feel discomfort or pain, work that area. If it's too painful, work the area either side of it, up and down or side to side, and then go back to it. The other thing I didn't, and then quads is about you just kind of like massage your knees to the tops. But you work it out. I recommend giving that a try. It's something I've actually only been introduced to rather recently, and I have found it very, very effective, especially on backs. So you can do it lying down, or you can do it like against a wall. And you can do this before the task, not necessarily right before, but like if you know you're lifting tires every day, it might be worth doing it like in the evening. So especially on you might want to choose to do this like 3 days a week. Maybe you do it on a Sunday in preparation for work on a Monday. And then you might do it again like on a Tuesday as to reset from your other 2 days of work and get you through the next couple of days of your first few days of work to get you through the next couple of days. Then you might do it again on a Friday or then a Saturday. I don't know. I recommend trying to find 3 days a week that work for you to do this. And just dedicate half an hour to it. If you dedicate half an hour to this 3 times a week, it'll make a difference. And you can do it in whatever way works for you. But the stretches are something that's super easy to do right then and there. Some of the key stretches, oh, my back's a little sore, you kind of go in the opposite direction. Then, your arms aside, twisting, lifting, sideways. Lots of really easy, common stretches we know. Stretches, I don't want to focus too much on exactly what stretches to do because it depends on your body. Where you are feeling discomfort, where you're feeling stiffness, where you're feeling pain, that's where you need to work. Now, please also remember if you're feeling any pain, do not perform a heavy lift. That should be part of our assess. I should have put in assess. Are you healthy to do this lift? If you are not feeling up to it, don't do it. Ask for help. Find another way. And that is all for today. Our next webinar will be on the 6th of July. If you want some more information on manual handling or anything in general, please give me a call, send me an email. You can also find some tools and resources on the dealer portal, which is an online resources website. It's got the dealer safety manual, some bulletins, the dealer safety, and some news and the webinars. Past webinars are there. So I mentioned we've done manual handling a few times. You'll find those past webinars up there. And if you have any questions, please contact me. If you've got a topic you want to hear next month, let me know. Thanks very much.